Salutations, everyone. How's everyone doing? Hope everyone is still enjoying their weekend. Saturday is always like a chill day for me. I don't rush to get out of bed in the morning at all unless I have something to do. And, just did a little walking throughout the complex. I had to check some mail, pick up some packages. And, like I said, it was kind of light. You know, I didn't really have any plans, or I didn't have any real, discussion offhand, but I do want to kind of give my little take on a couple of topics, a couple of things that has been circling around. For one, this whole Nelly and Ashanti situation. A lot of people have their views on especially mainly Nelly's position in the marriage and his involvement with the upbringing of their child that he and Ashanti have together. And um, I have a couple of perspectives about that. And I was looking at a video that RRG did. Shout out to RRG, Real Reality Gossip. That's what it stands for. Um, and it was given a psychological aspect of how when couples circle the block or spin the block, whatever you want to call it, and how um, just because a person got older doesn't mean they evolved. And so that really stuck with me because that is so true. A lot of times when we go back to what's familiar, because you have to understand, first of all, you have to assess how you became an ex with that person, like what you were your ex is for a reason, right? And so I'm not knocking the whole idea of reuniting with someone, but you have to understand the importance of getting to know that person and meet them where they are currently. You knew them back then, you know, and you knew, and plus you was aware of the reason why y'all ended up broken up in the first place. So when you decide to explore um, the possibility of spinning the block, so to speak, you have to figure out or take the time to get to know the person that they are now. Take the time, let them show you, not just tell you, let them show you. Because I remember, I know that a lot of people love to see them together, Nelly and Ashanti, and I don't know whether it was the pressure from the fans to kind of, get them together, or maybe that might have been some residue feelings from before that they wanted to explore but didn't because they haven't seen or heard from each other for some time. But when that versus thing happened with Fat Joe and Ja Rule, and it all went viral when Nelly walked across the stage and hugged her, and it was up from there. But that, you notice that there wasn't that much time between the time that happened until they got back together. And like I said, they seem happy. And I always love Ashanti. I think she's so adorable. And so I'm just glad to see her happy. And she seems very happy. And of course, there's going to be some conflicts within, right, within relationships. There's going to be conflicts within, and unfortunately, you see that publicly. Do I think they should have had a reality show so soon or at all? No. That's to me, that's strike one, putting this out there on reality TV, because I think they needed to take more time to get to know one another and take more time building the relationship. It just went from, her getting pregnant, them getting married, and having this reality show. To me, I just think that's a lot of pile on very fast, right? That's just my opinion. And so you're going to have a lot of people that's like, oh, Ashanti, you need to think twice about this. I mean, oh, you just had this baby and he doesn't want to change his diaper. And there are some men that are not really, how should I say, some of them are not really committed to the idea of bonding with their child at that age. I mean, a lot of men are, but I think a lot of people feel like the first few years of the child's life is not as important because they feel like, the child is not going to remember or certain things. And sometimes they do. There's some things I remember as a toddler, but the bottom line is that is the bonding period. The phase that they are now, especially for the mother and the baby, of course, you're bonding with that child. And so for Nelly to make it clear that he's just kind of leaving it up to her to take on the responsibility full time without him being present. But then within the first few months, during the infant stage, newborn and infant stage, to me, I think that's asinine. I really do. Personally, I think because that's the bonding phase, and that's the time when the your wife needs you the most, because she's going through hormonal changes postpartum. She feels, she feels fat, and she's going to, probably feel more emotional than ever. That bonding period is no joke, especially when it comes to that mother and child, because that child came from her body, to her giving birth, that birthing experience, and now that bonding period. It can be very challenging, could be very emotional. There's so many different assets to that, so many different factors that come into play that we all take for granted, right? And I think that this is the time, as a husband and as a father, he needs to step up and be there, and not be so quick to say, okay, no, let me step back, and I'm gonna wait until he's able to walk and talk. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether he was being facetious for some of that, because I mean, of course, I mean, he's going to be there some point. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a moment where he's just totally just be detached. I'm hoping, Nelly, please tell me tell me I'm right about this. I'm hoping that at some point, that you're going to have some attachment, that you're not going to be out, totally detached from your baby. I mean, I don't see that happening just because he said he won't change a diaper, which, I understand the outrage that, some people may have. I understand that, and I'm also hoping that the underlying reasoning as to why he decided to marry her is genuine, because that's a kind of psychological thing too, because you remember during the interviews, he said that he didn't want her to be a baby mama. I hate that term. I never like being referred to that, but I'm just saying, for the sake of this, I'm using that as a reference, because that's what he said. Those were his words. And I am concerned about the fact that that's the first response that he gave, was he didn't want her to be a baby mama. Even if he felt like he didn't deserve that, he didn't mention anything about love, devotion, how beautiful she is inside and out, how she wants to spend the rest of her life with her. Those words did not come out. Maybe it did during the interview. We didn't get to see it because we have clips that go viral without some of us don't look at the full context of the interview. But I just noticed that was the one that stuck out. And so I know a lot of times when a person like Nelly, given his he has a history, legal history with women, and I'm wondering if he's crisis bonding. Okay, I'm wondering if he's kind of using this as an opportunity to clean up his image, to kind of, for the optic purposes. And I'm hoping that's not what it is. I'm hoping, because I don't know for certain, because only they know their what ties them together. They know, because we're not in their households. We're not that fly on the wall. But I'm hoping that that's not. I hope that the intentions are pure on both sides. Okay, so I just wanted to give my take on that, because I really wish them nothing but the best. We see them together, they look great together. Overall, they look like they're having fun together, but I just hope that there's not one making more of the sacrifice and compromise than the other. Because I know also, when it comes to certain relationships as women, we always suppress our feelings sometimes to avoid being considered a nag, or not feeling like, you don't want to bring more drama to the table. You want to maintain the peace. So sometimes you withhold certain things that you're feeling. Because I know, like, there was a clip that we saw when Nelly was explaining about him still wanting to remain in St. Louis. And I think that Ashanti wanted to stay in New York because, of course, she has more of a support system there. and him, I think wanting to get back on the road, I think that'd be ideal for her, considering that he kind of left her with most of the responsibility when it came to the baby. So and she's just looked like, you can see the look on her face is so like devastating, like she just was not really happy with how he was explaining his desires to remain in St. Louis. And I just hope that they work through that. I just feel like, I'm sure that they're mature enough to understand the idea of meeting in the middle. But I just hope that, she's not subjecting herself to making all of the sacrifice and the compromise in order to make to make him happy, and to avoid um, being a nuisance or feeling like being a nag, or to avoid, you should be able to express your views on feelings on certain things, because that's what communication is all about, where you'll be able to come together. And even if you have to agree to disagree on some things, you have to, find a medium. Um, and also, there was another instance in regards to him performing at the president's inauguration. And he made his mind up that he was going to go, and Ashanti and her mom, of course, was against it. And I'm not going to go into whoever you support. No, I honestly don't think that anyone should be dictating anyone else's political views. Different subject there. All I'm saying is that I think he just needs to be mindful of, when he makes certain major decisions, that he needs to include his wife, and respect the fact that they're a unit, they're a team, and it should be more of a democracy and not a dictatorship when it comes to marriage. So, like I said, I just hope they work through some things, because they always want to say that reality TV is heavily edited. We don't see the ins and outs and the nooks and crannies and all that good stuff. But again, I just wanted to give my take on that. And like I said, I wish them nothing but the best. And I really hope that they do have more communication and more bonding time with the baby. That's my take. And also, I also wanted to get into, there has been some resurfaced traffic flow with Monique's conversation with Jesse Lee Peterson, in regards to her praying to the universe, because we have a lot of people who have like a spiritual mindset and try to avoid the religious aspect. And I try to as well, even though I do attend a Christian church and I do understand the Christian beliefs. I do understand how important it is for me to follow Bible-based beliefs, right? But there's a lot of people that talk about the universe or the Most High. They don't actually say the name, okay? You know, and there's always a debate about who God is, and what's God's real name, because we understand it to be Yahshua, because if you go in the old biblical text, the God is spelled G_D, like there's no O in the middle. So it's just some context there. But there was a discussion about her not believing in God but the universe. And so I don't want to dig too deep into it, because I do want to have this discussion with my pastor, whether my pastor here in Atlanta or my pastor in the Bronx, or someone who is of the clergy. I do want to have that discussion as well. But I just want to have my little piece of take on it. I just feel like, again, I'm not going to impose my beliefs on anyone if she believes in the universe. And to me, it just, and I don't know whether she was using like she was trying to like add a little bit of comic flow to it, but she was saying that if you put you add God to the mix, then you have to tithe, and you can't do this, you can't do that, it's a sin to breathe, and all this other stuff. So maybe she feels like being able to allow the universe to reveal itself, however the form it is, then it allows them more freedom than to say, okay, I believe in God. And but I truly believe that you can avoid. I mean, for me, my personal belief is that you cannot get around answering to God. Like, you have to, whatever you do, you got to answer to God for. So there's no way around this. So whether or not you want to pray to universe or to nature or to the trees, to any, you know, God has the ultimate, the ultimate say, right? He has the ultimate say. So I just noticed that resurfaced. So I just noticed that there was some commentary about that because Monique is going to be a topic of discussion, and depending on what we're talking about, she's going to be a topic of discussion because she's kind of a controversial figure as well. Shout out to Monique, but that universe factor has always been a, a component when it comes to someone who considers themselves more spiritual than anything. And I do understand how people feel about organized religion and their approach to their worshiping and their belief systems and how divisive it is. And that's the thing about it, because I feel like if we worship in the same God, the God that you know is the end all be all, then it shouldn't be such a divide. And I'm not one to impose on anyone. I respect one's beliefs and their value systems, because I'm not going to call this person's name, but they looked at my curtain. I have a curtain from Japan. It's like a Japanese curtain. So I'm a fan of Asian art, so I have a curtain that has like it looked like it's Buddha with headphones. So I liked the way it looked, and I got it. And so you know that person felt a little uncomfortable, feel a little bit ill at ease, because they felt like, is that a god? You like making it seem like that's like another idol, or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not what I that wasn't my intent when I bought the curtain. I just like the art of it. But I do understand their position and I respect it. But I also mentioned to that person that I still respect others' beliefs. So, you know, um, so those who practice Buddhism, and you get into their ideologies. I don't know much about the Buddhism religion. I'm not familiar all with it, but I do know that I'm not indulging in the whole idea of um, worship another god or deity. That wasn't my intent when I got it. So, but I do understand where that person was coming from. So I just wanted to put that in, throw that in there. But when it comes to idol worship, that's not the lane I'm on. It's really not. But again, however a person wants to worship, or whatever they worship to, or their um, their belief systems. I'm not in a position to judge that or disrespect that, because we all have our own lane. And even when we try to follow a certain religion or spirituality, we don't always get it right. We're not going to be perfect. Our approaches are going to be different. And it's so much to unpack there. It's so multi-layered. That's why I said I want to have this conversation you know, with other people about this, and I'm looking forward to doing that. But I just wanted to kind of come out and just, give my little spiel. That's all. Wasn't going to be on too long, but I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you like this video and comment, subscribe to my channel. I'm kind of like really getting into the groove of this, this whole thing. It's still, it's still an adjustment. My one of my cousins messaged me on Instagram and was saying about how she enjoys my personality, and I was like, oh, thank you. I didn't realize I had one. Because sometimes people don't think I have a personality at all, or some people think I have a strong personality. And so she was like, oh, I didn't realize you were so funny. And so I said, yeah, sometimes I might add a little, warped sense of humor, like I said before. So I really appreciate the feedback I'm getting. It means a lot. It really does. It's not taken for granted. So like I said, I'm still continuing to, get in this groove. I know that it's going to slowly start to build, and I'm trying to get as much content out there as possible, kind of put more of me out there, so I do appreciate that. I appreciate the support. I want more, of that. I want more of that support, you know so please, do that for me. Do that for me. All right. All right. So I'm going to end it here. And like I said, thank you again for um taking the time to converse with me, even though I'm conversing with you. But maybe you might want to converse. Maybe you converse back with at me. I may not hear you from the screen, but you might be conversing back with me too. I'm hoping that, hey, as long as it's dialogue, right? As long as I got your attention, right? All right. All right. So thank you so much again, and